Hello, everybody out there, and welcome to another episode of the Talk That Talk Show with me, Barry Holmes. And we are here for our 263rd episode of the Talk That Talk Show. But most importantly, it is the first episode of 2025. And I hope all the listeners out there tuned in had a great new year. I had a great new year spending time with my family. Both sides of the family. Really was with my girlfriend's family, then spent the latter half with my family. But I just feel like for a lot of people, New Year's for so many years can embody, drinking, watching the ball drop, and just really celebrating all the things that you've accomplished over the past year. And I think that for me, spending this past New Year's, I was just really excited to just spend it with the family and, just really do not much of anything. I think that, for the last, couple months of 2024 and leading into 2025, it's just been a grind, man. Just nonstop, trying to advance, going to do different things outside of the job, doing different things within the job. It's just been a lot that's been going on in my life. But, the grind doesn't stop. Just because, you have things going on doesn't mean the world stops or, doesn't stop spinning. I think for me, going into this next year, going into 2025, really it encompassed with just starting with my foundation, being around my family, being around my girlfriend, being around the people that matter the most to me. Because at the end of the day, those are the people that you lean on in your tough times. So, I think that going into 2025, I really want to continue to strengthen, the relationships that I have, with the people that matter the most to me. I think that, in our own lives, we can get caught up in the grind in the process. And sometimes we do lose sight or lose track of the people that, do care about us. And, I talk about my boy Admiral a lot where, I don't see him every day, don't talk to him every day. But the times that I do see him, it's like we picked up right where we left off. So, I think that, for me going into 2025, I definitely want to be a better friend, just a better person to the people, that matter the most to me. Because, you can't go out there and think that you can do things alone. The people that, try to go out and conquer and slay demons by themselves, those are the people that have the longest, hardest road. I think that, having, my family there and having people that support me, in all of my endeavors, that's what makes me feel like I'm the richest person in the world. It has nothing to do with money. It's just, that support system that makes me feel like I'm really whole, Big shout out to my boy Alex Buffington, tuned in on our Facebook Live. Big shout out to my boy Chris White, also tuned in on our Facebook live stream. But one of the biggest things, when I talk about 2025 and going into this new year, has been, some goal setting. I do have some things that I am looking to achieve in this next year. And I think that goals are very important because they're great benchmarks for us to see the progress that we are making. On my way out from, the job today, I had a conversation with Chris, and we were talking about, holding each other accountable for trying to go to the gym and see the different things that we want, change within ourselves. And, we talked, just previously about, needing, those people that, we rely on and we care about, a lot of that comes through accountability, right? So, in talking to Chris leaving work, I felt like we had a better understanding of what we both wanted to do in the gym. And it was kind of like motivating to both of us to, see that you had someone else that had the same struggle as I did, was closing out 2024, trying to be in the best fitness shape possible. But, again, making those excuses and, life happens. And I think that, for us, being able to control what we can control, that's something that helps you to, tackle those obstacles and keep you moving in the right direction. So, when I looked at things that I want to accomplish and things that I want to have go my way in 2025, I want to be able to control what I can control. Big shout out to my boy Steve Sakis, who's tuned in on our Facebook Live, but he laughs all the time about when I call him a Hall of Famer, bring attention to him. But one of the things that I do admire about Steve is the fact that his mental game is always up there. You can never tell whether he's striking out the ass or whether he's struggling. And I think that, controlling what we can control is part of the reasons why he's able to stay as locked in mentally as he has. And, I think that that's something that I have to remind myself, plenty of times, whether we're talking about bowling, whether we're talking about professionally, where, you have certain things that don't go your way. And, you have to be able to maintain, you have to be able to, still fight through, find a solution, find a way to make things happen for yourself. And part of that is being patient. I think for me personally, that's probably one of the toughest things that for me is to grasp on a daily basis, is trying to stay patient. Because I think that, especially with us as human beings, we want that instant gratification. We want that instantaneous success. We want that validation that whatever we've put forth is going to come to us, right? And I think that, for those big time goals or those things that we seek at the end of the tunnel, instant gratification doesn't come right away. It doesn't come to us. So I think that, the unknown or what it takes to get to that point is what sometimes dissuades us or stops us from getting to that desired outcome. So for me, just trying to stay patient, controlling the things that I can control, and taking things, like we say in bowling, shot for shot, one frame at a time. I think that patience is what's going to allow me to take the next step in my career professionally, to take the next step towards being a better person, being a better Barry Holmes. I think those are the things that I want to kind of align myself in my, pursuit of happiness, or that pursuit of, becoming a better Barry. So, controlling what I can control, and in turn, conserving that energy that would, in all other instances, take towards complaining, making excuses, and just negative behavior. We just want to take that and flip that to being positive, right? And in turn, getting that stronger mentality, like my boy Steve Sakis, like I just talked about, man. But I think another thing that really I want to do in 2025 that I think a lot of other people can kind of align with is just try to reorganize and declutter my life, I think that oftentimes when we're going throughout the day, we're just getting constant stimulations and constant things that are thrown within our face, and it becomes hard to then decipher where is it that we're trying to go, right? When you have all these different roadblocks, or you have these distractions that kind of take us away from our end goal, but really what embody what the life is, right? So for me, really just trying to declutter my life of all the different outside noises or things that don't help me to get to my desired outcome. It could be something as simple as cleaning up your room, doing some, spring cleaning, getting rid of some of the things that I don't necessarily use every single day, trying to get those little things out of my way so that I can get to that end goal. I think that that's something that I've really embraced, starting in 2025, and also reorganizing. I think that I've mentioned before about trying to utilize the schedule, but really holding, fast to it. I think I've been a victim of this, or not a victim, but, I've definitely been a culprit of just saying yes to things without looking at the schedule, right? And then you look down the line and you're getting these schedule conflicts, and there's no worse feeling than having to cancel on somebody or cancel something that you said that you were going to do. So for me, utilizing that schedule, getting dates down, putting them in the calendar, holding, deadlines. I think that we had nationals coming up. This is going to be the first year we're going in March. And had we not set deadlines for all the moving parts, we might not have been able to do that on a short turnaround. We had just went to nationals in July, and now we're trying to go in March, which we will be. But I think, again, setting those deadlines for each other and holding each other accountable was something that was able to allow us to do this, And again, if I had not organized, if I had not worked together with TK and done certain things to get this overall group to go to nationals, it might not have happened. But I think, again, the overall theme to this is taking control of the organization within your own life and trying to organize certain things and declutter yourself so that you can make those monumental leaps and do the things that you set out to do. Big shout out to my pops who's tuned in on Facebook live stream. But, really for those people that are tuned in, just going over some of the goals that I have here in 2025 and some of the things that I'm really trying to, make a priority so that I can strengthen myself going into the next year. And the next thing that I had on my list was self-accountability. When I was working at Playworks at the nonprofit, I had my own office in the gym, and I had put in there this. I wish I still had it, but I had this poster, and I think that on there it says the hardest thing to do is to do the right thing when no one's looking. And I think that, that overall theme pertains to also accountability. It's so easy for us to kind of like, I'll get to this shit tomorrow, or, I'll, get to it at some point when there's no consequences. When I do not accomplish something on my goal list, there's nobody that's going to hold me accountable other than myself. So, I think that self-accountability, it is a hard thing to do for some people because we can get into that routine of, I'll get it done another time, or, I'll accomplish this when I get to it. And I think that what happens is that prioritization list, you slide further and further down, and in turn, you get further and further away from your goal. So I think for me, setting realistic goals has definitely helped to be able to accomplish some of those goals, right? And in doing so, I think this is the part that gets people, or it stops us a lot of times from accomplishing those goals, is that you have to make sacrifices to accomplish those goals that you're looking to get, right? One of my favorite quotes is, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So, obviously, if you want to make some progress, which means changing your position from where you are to get into a better position, you're going to have to move different. You're going to have to do some different things. And I think that even today, being on a day where, I might not be as motivated, or you work a long day and you still got to go and get the job done, there's some sacrifice that you have to make. There's maybe some extracurricular activities that you might want to do that you can't do, right? So, ultimately, what stops us from achieving those goals is sometimes not making the sacrifice that are needed to do so, right? Big shout out to my boy Chris White. I love him to death. As a coworker, as a friend, I've been trying to get him to advocate for himself a lot more, speaking up for himself, trying to, speak and do the things that he wants to accomplish the right way, right? And, we're constantly trying to get that voice out of him. And, I think that he's been receptive because I've seen, different strides with him, advocating for himself. And I think that, in doing so, when you, hold yourself accountable, then it becomes also a lot easier to hold others accountable and hold those people that matter the most to you. And there's plenty of times where, Chris will, check on me and make sure I'm doing okay. And, I think that, when you have that support system of people that care, it then becomes a lot easier for you to hold yourself accountable for yourself, man. Big shout out to my boy Justin McPhail. Big shout out to him tuning in on Facebook Live. And I think that accountability comes from consistency as well too. Having this podcast and coming from doing it weekly, which I was able to do when I had a lot less responsibilities, to still holding realistic expectations to maybe getting 1 to 2 out each month and still holding myself accountable. And in doing so, having people like Justin McPhail tuned in when he doesn't even know when I'm tuned in, he's going to be locked in. I think that that's those type of validations that you get when you hold yourself accountable, and I think that beyond just those instant gratifications, it's the fact of, like I have written down here, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We talk about it all the time about seeing the bigger picture. And I think that when you, see the bigger picture, or you understand why it is that you're trying to grind to do what you need to do, that's what in turn gets us to get to those situations where you can take advantage of opportunities. And like Justin says, you got to show up to show out. Yo, that's a fact, man. Like I had at my bowling event, in closing, I said, you got to be out, you got to be seen. You got to be outside. You can't be seen if you're not outside. So to be able to make those opportunities for yourself, you just have to show up, man. And, big shout out to Justin, for tuning in and letting the people know that, hey, first step is, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. All right. So you got to take that first step. And I think that the next thing that I have written down here, which is very, very important, is you have to remain disciplined. Discipline over motivation. There's going to be so many times where you don't feel like it. And that's where the motivation sometimes stops. It's only human. You're not going to be motivated to make sacrifices every single day. It's just that's the way this works out. You're going to have some discipline to be able to push through those times where you're not motivated, where you don't feel like doing it. And that's where the discipline comes in. I can't sit here and tell you guys that I'm the most disciplined person in the world. I'm not. But I am working towards being the most disciplined person. I want to achieve these things that are on my list as far as personal goals in 2025. And none of them will be achievable without discipline. And I think that that's something that we all have to work on daily. It doesn't come overnight. It's not sexy. It's not desirable. But the achievements that you're looking for do not come without discipline. You cannot achieve those goals that you have set forth, whether it's on your vision board, whether it's on your goal list, whether it's on your New Year's resolutions. You cannot achieve any of those things without fucking discipline. And I say that with the most emphasis possible because it is that important. If there's anything that you take from this podcast today, it's do it with discipline. Don't do it because you're motivated to do so. Do it because you really want it. And that comes from discipline. So in 2025, I'm looking to be more disciplined so that I can achieve the things that I want to on this goal list. And, the last thing that I have written on here is stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I want to be ready for any opportunity that comes my way because you never know when you're going to get that opportunity again. Big shout out to Sarah. She made it to front 11. And then what did she do in the 12th shot? She gutter balled. Is that going to stop her from bowling again? Is that going to stop her from achieving her goal that she wants to achieve? No. That should anything make her more hungry, so that when she gets that opportunity again in the 12th frame to go get that shot, best believe she's going to get that 12th frame shot, And I think that, again, when you have people that have these opportunities, sometimes they're just not ready yet. But when that next opportunity does come, then best believe you're going to steal the show. You're going to seal the deal. And I think that, Sarah's, what happened to her on Thursday at Majestic, that's a perfect life representation. You can do everything that you want correctly, and it's just not going to go your way that time. But that cannot deter us, or that cannot stop us from that end goal, that bigger picture, that end of the light at the end of the tunnel, right? So in life, you just got to have to be ready for whatever comes your way. And I know it's easier said than done, but, that's on my list of things that I want to accomplish in 2025. I want to make sure that whenever any opportunity comes up, when it's ready to take that next step in my next position, when it's time to, go up to these new brands, when it's time to go into hopefully the 12th frame and get my first 300, I know that I will be ready. I know it because in life, that only comes from the confidence. And when you have that confidence, you can't dread the moment, right? I think that, when we have on this, right, the unknown is what sometimes stops us from doing those things that we want to do, right? I said to my girlfriend all the time, she was working on her dissertation for her, doctorate degree. and sometimes the unknown of what her mentors, the people are going to say in reference to her paper, kind of deters her, stops her, worries her. And what I try to encourage her all the time, and what I have to remind myself is that we have to be excited about the unknown. The things that we do not know and the things that are not in our control, we have to be excited about them, because at the end of the day, if we worry about it and we try and let that stop us from that end goal, we're never going to achieve our goals, right? So I think for me, being confident and making sure that I'm not running from those big time moments or those opportunities where you have to step up and make something big happen, that's what I'm looking forward to in 2025. So, I want you guys all to hold me accountable. Here on episode 263 of the Talk That Talk Show, I gave you guys my realistic goals of 2025. And I just hope that in listening to them, maybe you look and start to think about what you want to do in 2025. I'm not here to say I'm going to be, this wholly, completely different new person that I was from last year. But what I want to do is I want to be a little bit better every single day, so that when you look at the end of the year, you can say, damn, Barry Holmes is still the same Barry Holmes, but he's just way up here now, man, right? And I think that comes from, again, that self-accountability and holding true to myself and just being myself, man. And I think that, spelling out these, dream goals or these goals that we want for ourselves and being realistic, it just puts you on the way to success, man. And hopefully, on my goals in 2025 is to make some better picks in my NFL, right? I tell you what, last week I thought I had it all figured out in the NFL playoffs, but clearly I didn't know as much as I thought I did. And I'll say this, we got some great matchups for the NFL divisional round coming up. And real quick, the one thing that we have to say is the biggest disappointment, just off the rip, the biggest disappointment of the NFL playoffs thus far has been the 14-win Minnesota Vikings that's been ousted in the first round of the playoffs. Now, will I say that the Vikings had an awful season? Absolutely not. Aside from two teams, the Lions and the Rams. The Vikings had a great season. But unfortunately for them, they will be going home to Cancun. And the big thing that I really want to say is that in the NFL playoffs, you do not get the opportunity, or you don't get the privilege to say, we'll get them next week. What I've seen in this wild card round, and which will kind of extend into the playoffs, is your biggest weakness will get exposed. And what I think we saw from the Minnesota Vikings is that, their offensive line just was not as good as we thought it was. My boy, Sam Darnold, do you remember when he was on the Jets and he said that he was seeing ghosts out there? My man was literally seeing ghosts on the Minnesota Vikings. I saw him pump faking on players that were open. And I'm not saying that this is all Sam Darnold's fault. But what I will say is that in the playoffs, you will see who is like that and who's not like that. I remember I was watching Stephen A. Smith's show, and he said that Lamar Jackson could not be the reason why the Baltimore Ravens lost. And I think that theme has to be reliant on everybody's best player on their team. When you get into the playoffs, and if you're a franchise player, you cannot be the reason why your team does not advance to the next round. And I look at someone like a Sam Darnold, who is going to be looking for some big-time money in, next season. How can you justify giving this dude money when in the biggest game, they put up 9 points, man? A 14-win team like that, when you're in the biggest moments, the biggest stages, you got to show up. And unfortunately, I think, O'Connell, the coach for the Minnesota Vikings, he's going to come under a lot of scrutiny because, those big-time coaches and those big-time, administrators within those franchises when it comes down to when you're seeing some frustration, you have to make those in-game adjustments. So if I were me and I'm looking at that Minnesota Viking team, I'm holding that coach accountable because there's no reason why a 14 win team should look like what they looked like, in a wild card game. Big shout out to my boy Steve Sakis says, toughest thing sometimes is to overcome the unexpected, but it's the most rewarding. Big shout out to you, Steve. Yo, think about it. When you have a situation where you actually figured out and you see what is the end of that unknown, damn it, you're right, bro. That is the best feeling. I swear, man, I didn't think I was going to go across the stage to get my college degree, but the unknown and the process to get to that point. But when I walked across that stage, man, I had tears in my eyes, bro, because you couldn't take that from me. And I think that same feeling can extend to anybody, that when you have grinded and when you've put forth that effort to get that end result, damn it, you deserve to feel whatever emotion you feel, man. But the biggest surprise in the NFL playoffs in that first round, the wild card, had to be the Houston Texans. I don't think anybody believed that the hobbled and battered and bruised Houston Texans would be able to beat the Chargers, who were, for the most part, with riding that Jim Harbaugh train, they've been far exceeded any expectation that we thought of the Los Angeles Chargers. But again, the Texans, starting on their defensive end, really stymied the Chargers. We saw a team that really, on all levels, struggled to do anything positive. And again, you got to look at DeMeco Ryans as potentially one of the head coaches, potentially of the year again. You got to put him in that conversation, because when you look at the Texans and what they lost, you lose Stephon Diggs, you lose Tank Dell, you lose Nico Collins for a part of that season. And to think that they are now in the divisional round, they far exceeded any expectations. And I'm here to clap it up for them, because they will get completely clobbered by the Chiefs in the next round. All right? They had a great season. You've definitely far exceeded expectations. But to think that Texans team has enough firepower to beat the Chiefs, who are on a destined path for greatness, I do not think that the Texans will be able to do anything going into Arrowhead. Yo, big shout out to my boy Sal Fab. He said Texans very good defense. I agree with you, Sal. When you looked at that pass rush, they completely battered and clobbered the Chargers. But what I look to is I look at the inexperience that we saw from Justin Herbert. And I look to what they have to go up against with the massive experience of a Patrick Mahomes. And I look at a guy in Patrick, and a guy who has solutions, a guy who has answers. I look at Justin Herbert out there as a guy who's trying to find those answers. And I think that the organization and the preparation that the Chiefs have, that extra bye week to get everyone healthy, I think this is an absolute no-brainer. Most times I wouldn't take the Chiefs to cover points, but I think this is going to be a lot further away distance-wise than people think. This game is not going to be close. I say take the 9 points. I say take the Chiefs as favorites by 9 points. They are going to beat the shit out of the Houston Texans. But the next game that I think is going to be a little bit more difficult for us to pick, which is kind of like a toss-up, is the Baltimore Ravens against the Buffalo Bills. Now, you know me. I love Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson might be one of the best regular season football players that we've ever seen. But we talk about the uncertainty, right, Steve? The uncertainty has been behind Lamar Jackson winning big games. I think this game right here is going to be one of the biggest that we will see in terms of Lamar Jackson's legacy. If Lamar Jackson cannot go on the road where he had arguably one of his best career years, he set multiple records, what excuse does Lamar Jackson have now if he does not get it done in Buffalo? You got Mark Andrews, who's playing at an amazing rate. I know we're going to have to see what's going on with Zay Flowers. I don't think that the Ravens will have it easy. But definitely not having Zay Flowers won't make it any easier. But I'll give you 2 words as to why I think that won't matter. Derrick Henry. I think the running attack for the Baltimore Ravens can help to solidify this a little bit for the Ravens. But I would be a fool if I told you that I could confidently pick the Baltimore Ravens over Buffalo. I tell you what, Buffalo being underdogs at home in a divisional round, it's such a trap because my heart and my mind, they're conflicted. In my heart's telling me, don't do it. Don't take the Ravens. They have not proven anything to you in a big state. Any type of big game possible. Lamar Jackson has not shown me that confidently in the playoffs when it counts. I want to see Lamar Jackson go into Buffalo and prove to me that he's the MVP that we constantly, unanimously want to vote him in as. Go win in Buffalo. And you tell me if Lamar Jackson is the MVP or he's the best ever. Because I promise you, if Lamar Jackson does not go into Buffalo and get it done, we are going to be talking about his legacy moving forward as being potentially just the best regular season quarterback of all time. And not in the postseason. But I tell you what, Sal's right. Fade the public. Go Buffalo. Because in my mind, I see this 1.5 point spread as favorites for Baltimore. Vegas is begging you to take Baltimore. They're begging you to take that cheap value for a money line, right? It's only minus 160, right? It's only 1.5 points, right? Vegas is begging you to take Baltimore. I'm here to tell you, trust your eyes. What has Josh Allen showed us all year long? What has Josh Allen shown us in the biggest stages? It has not been Josh Allen's fault as to why they've lost in the playoffs. When you look at those games against the Chiefs, he has balled out. The Bills couldn't stop a nosebleed. That's why they didn't make it. So if you ask me, who am I taking between Buffalo and Baltimore? I'm taking Buffalo. I'll take them straight up. Because I tell you what, it is an extremely difficult ask to get Lamar Jackson to go into Buffalo and shake off all those demons and those skeletons of not being able to get it done in the biggest stage for a guy in Josh Allen who's had his best career year. And again, it's the better teams that win here in the playoff time. And I don't think there's anybody playing better than Buffalo right now. So, it's going to be difficult, but I gotta take the Buffalo Bills, man. As much as Vegas wants you to take Baltimore, don't take the bait, guys. And then we got the LA Rams versus the Eagles. Everybody's big on Saquon Barkley. The guy is projected to have over 111 rushing yards in this game coming up. And, this is tough, man, because I do think that the Eagles should win. I think the Eagles should win. But the LA Rams, having Matt Stafford, again, the experience, you got Puka, you got Cooper Kupp, who hasn't played his best football, but damn it, his potential. You got Kyron Williams who's running all over the place. Rams are a team you do not want to play right now, man. And I think I'd be a liar if I told you I could confidently take the Eagles. I think the Eagles are a team that beats up on the teams they're supposed to beat up on. I think they struggle against the teams that might be up to their caliber, or if not a little bit better. I think it's saying something that Jalen Hurts is only a week or two removed from that concussion. I think that if the Eagles have to heavily rely on that run game and they cannot get A.J. Brown the ball, it's going to be a tough day for the Philadelphia Eagles. I got them on upset watch. I think that the Rams they're playing great football. Oftentimes when you have a team that, beats the shit out of a team that you weren't think they were supposed to, they have that letdown in the next game. I do not believe the Los Angeles Rams will have a letdown in their next game. I think they're going to come out ready to go. I think they're going to be throwing the ball. I think you might even see Matthew Stafford, get close to 300 passing yards. I know that sounds astronomical, but if you are the Los Angeles Rams and you have any chance in hell to beat this team, you're going to need Matthew Stafford to sling the football. And he was throwing the ball really, really well in that first half of the last game that they just beat. You know what I'm saying? I tell you what, I still believe in Matthew Stafford. I still believe in the run attacking of the Los Angeles Rams. I'm not going to take the Eagles in this game, guys. I'm going to ride with the hot hand here. I think that if anybody that can go on the road and be the road warriors, the Rams have done it all year long. Nobody has given the Rams anything all year long. And all they've done is been competitive and competitive and competitive. So you ask me, I got the Rams, man. And then finally, we got Commanders versus the Lions. My boy Steve says, go Commanders. He is a big Commanders fan. This is a tough one, man. Again, your heart wants to say this is an easy dub. The Lions have been playing out of their mind at home. But who keeps proving the doubters wrong each and every week? You got to say it's no more further than Jaden Daniels, right? So, I don't know, man. I think the safe play maybe to take the Commanders' points. I think they're getting like 8.5, 9.5 points. But again, that could be a trap because what Vegas wants you to do is forget about all the success that Detroit has had at home, where they've scored 30, 40 points at home every single week. So that 9.5, that 8.5, even though it seems like a lot of points, remember, guys, what have the Lions done all year long? When it comes to betting, Vegas is always trying to get you to not trust your eyes and look at the numbers. They want those numbers to dissuade you from away from what you see. And you mean to tell me definitively that as great of the season that my man Daniels has had at the Commanders, you mean to tell me with your eyes you're going to say that the Commanders are going to go on the road and beat the Detroit Lions in a fashion that nobody's been able to do in Detroit? Good luck, Commanders. I think they've had a great season. I think that they are on the rise. I think that the NFC East is going to be the Commanders for the next couple of years. But this ain't their year to go into Detroit and get the dub. I cannot agree with that. So let's see if the Commanders make a fool out of me. But I just don't believe it. And then the last thing that I have to talk about in the NFL is the disrespect, and I have to say is the fucking disrespect that my man Mike Tomlin has got. And I think that this is an overarching theme and what people may not want to hear, they might not want to hear it, but unfortunately, I feel like sometimes as black head coaches, they do not get the same type of leniency that other coaches may get. I'll say this. If you look at Gerard Mayo, what was he supposed to do with that Patriots team? What was he supposed to do? And for after 1 year, and when you look at that quarterback in Drake May, who did get a little bit better, they did develop. The Patriots did win their last game. You see who they got with Milton. And for him to get fired like that, I just think it speaks to the microcosm of just not having the same type of leniency that other coaches are afforded, man. And then when you look at Mike Tomlin, a guy who's had, wins over 500 for almost over a decade, and now because he's in a spot where, you lose 5 straight playoff games, And now you're potentially talking about not having a job anymore. And I think that that's where things are a little bit skewed because, again, we talked about it before. If you want different results, you got to move different, right? So do the Steelers go in a different direction, right? Because their coach hasn't been able to get it done in the playoffs? Or do you keep going because you've seen that he's gotten your team a Super Bowl in the past and he has the Steeler way and he has that organization functioning? How many teams can really say that they've had winning seasons for decades, right? So I agree. The amount of feedback and disrespect that Mike Tomlin has received because of the fact that he's got Russell Wilson as his quarterback, I think that it's a little bit unfair to Mike Tomlin to say that he needs to go or needs to get out of Pittsburgh when he doesn't have necessarily the tools to be a Super Bowl contender. Can you honestly look me in the eyes and say that Pittsburgh, that old Pittsburgh Steelers team, that mightily old Pittsburgh Steelers team is a Super Bowl contender? I think that Mike Tomlin should get more of a tip of the cap for making do with what he had. The man won 4 games with Justin Fields as his quarterback, and the Bears couldn't even do that. So, again, the amount of disrespect that Mike Tomlin has received because of the lack of success in the postseason, is it warranted? It might be. But I think another reason why you got to keep the guy is look at the interview that he had on his exit interview. You have a lot of guys who maybe run from the criticism. They like to push it or use other people as scapegoats. Mike Tomlin, if you read and if you look at what he said in his interview, he accepted all criticism. He says, I welcome the fact that people want urgency and success from Pittsburgh. And that's what leaders do. We talked about at the beginning of the show, right? Accountability. You don't want someone that's head of your franchise running from responsibilities. My man Mike Tomlin is taking on all feedback. I know we haven't won in the last 5 years. I get it. I deserve that feedback. But that's what's going to make me better. You give me that chance, I will be better. And I think that that's why Mike Tomlin, to like Sal's point, he ain't going anywhere. Because I don't see even adults taking the same kind of accountability that Mike Tomlin has in losing. You know, I have not seen him throw Russell Wilson under the bus for bad decision making. I haven't seen him throw George Pickens under the bus for being a hothead and getting penalties called on him. You haven't heard him throw the defense under the bus for not being able to stop a fucking nosebleed. Mike Tomlin is the perfect NFL coach to get organization and to get things built to a standard. You have coaches that are brought in to try and create the standard, and they fail to do so, and they're cut. My man, Mike Tomlin, established a system the Steeler way. He's got people to buy in. You didn't hear Justin Fields complain once about not being a starter. You heard people taking accountability, and that is a sign of a leader, and that's why Mike Tomlin does not deserve the things that he's been coming his way. That guy deserves any bit of praise that he has, and we should literally appreciate the fact that how hard is it to maintain being competitive for decades? For decades. Just let that sink in real quick. And I'll say this. Before I hop off the air here, I got to talk about my Knicks very briefly. It's a little bit frustrating to me about the Knicks because what we saw at the beginning of the season was we saw a team that dominated. You know, we saw last month the stretch where the Knicks won 9 straight games. But I'm not going to make this lengthy because really we got to just we have to go straight to the facts. The Knicks are the 15th best defense in the league. Tom Thibodeau is a defensive-minded coach. How the fuck are the Knicks so bad defensively? The Knicks in 8 games in January won. One game where they only gave up less than 100 points. The New York Knicks used to be the most physical and defensively imposing team, but now the Knicks are trying to play like they have Mike D'Antoni as their coach again. Offense is good. The Knicks have been scoring points in bunches, but if you cannot stop nobody, then there's no way you're going to have any type of success in the regular season or in the postseason. The sooner that the Knicks are able to figure it out defensively, the best that they will be. But here's my problem. This is why I'm a little wary as far as if the Knicks can even get any better. Do they have one of the best top fives in the league? Absolutely. You could make an argument that anybody on that starting five could be an all-star or a starter on any other NBA team. But when you look at the bench, look at this last game, the Knicks only played 4 people off the bench. Precious Achiuwa, Cameron Payne, Miles McBride, and Landry Shamet. Great hustle guys, great heart guys, great glue guys. But are they great defensive guys? When you have that starting five coming off of the bench, you have them coming off the floor, and you're only playing 4 guys, there's a significant drop-off on defense when that starting five is not out there. And I think that is what is most concerning about the Knicks, because if they don't make a move, if you don't make some sort of roster change, because when I look at this roster right now, outside of that top 5, it's just not it, man. You look at the Boston Celtics, teams that are top to bottom, really good. There's no drop-off when that second unit comes in. And I have to say, with my own eyes, we talk about reading your eyes, looking and trusting your eyes. Can you say as a Knicks fan, those Knicks fans out there, isn't there a drop-off when that second unit comes in? So I think that defensively, it's glaring issues. But unfortunately, if they don't switch up that roster or make some sort of move, then that's going to be their identity, guys. The Knicks are not going to be a defensive team. They're going to have to outscore teams. And if you have to depend on shootouts in the NBA, you ain't going to make it to June. And that's all I have to say about that. But, in closing, how I am in the cannabis industry. One of the things that people are constantly asking me is, what have I been enjoying on my own time? What are the things that Barry's enjoying? But I'll have to give you guys 2 brands that you should definitely check out here in New Jersey if you're a fan of cannabis. But first things first, I got to say big time shout out to Vibes. Love my boy Quinn out there. There is no better paper in the world that you're going to roll with aside from these Vibes rice papers. I tell you what, when you want to taste those terps, you want to get a smooth roll, you definitely got to get yourself some Vibes papers, all right? Big shout out to him. These rice papers are my absolute favorite. But you ask, what are you putting in those rice papers, Barry? What are you putting in that rice paper? If you have not tried it, guys, you need to try yourself some Niche cannabis, all right? Niche is a brand by my boy Nick. Big shout out to him. And it says not for everyone on the side. And what he did was he leveraged exclusivity with his brand. Not every store in New Jersey will carry Niche, and not every store that has Niche will have the same strains. So literally, it's almost like the hat game again, where you got to know somebody to get these strains, right? So I've really enjoyed the exclusivity that's come with Niche, and most importantly, the marketing that's been behind it. The fact that not for everyone, the fact that the terp percentage and the THC is so high, if you have not tried Niche cannabis, that has been what's been in my Vibes paper right now, and more specifically, the Pie Scream, all right? This Pie Scream is testing at 36% THC and a whopping 6.55 terps. if you are looking for a strong smoke, something that's going to knock your socks off, Niche is where you're going to want to go. And then finally, big shout out to my boy Cisco over at Sun Concentrates. They launched their brand Space Ranger, which is, their live resin, live diamond brand, but with a little bit more taste there to it. Big shout out to Space Ranger because this Meteor Melon, this concentrate, has been what I've been enjoying from Space Ranger. The Meteor Melon's tested at 88% cannabinoids, 4% terps. When it comes down to a concentrate, this is the most delicious concentrate that you're going to find in the state of New Jersey. That Meteor Melon, that's what I've been enjoying. Big shout out to Cisco because, he told me months ago when we were in Atlantic City that, Space Ranger is going to be the brand that you're going to want for that taste. And when you ask me what has been in my pivot, what have I used in this Puffco pivot, nothing short of that Space Ranger, guys. So, in closing, I appreciate you all for listening to me on my podcast. It's been a while. I wanted to make sure that this first one in 2025 was going to hit hard, all right? You got over 50 minutes of big-time content. Thank you guys so much for rocking out with me each and every week. You know what time it is. Each and every month, you know that you're coming with the episode of that Talk Show. I appreciate everybody that gives me feedback about what I should talk about. Give me feedback about how I'm conducting these episodes. You all are a big reason as to why I'm able to come in here each and every month. Whether you're getting 1, 2, 3, 4 episodes a month, I'm able here to be myself and be the best version of myself because of you all tuning in every single time. So whether you're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, you name it, we're on all streaming platforms. Check out our newest episodes at TalkThatTalkShow.com. I love you all, and I'll see you all next episode.